just the other day, and they were describing how they know what they want. They want to be free of their addiction. They know how it works because they've understood through my program, how things work. They've actually implemented the skills. They've learnt the skills. They've actually become quite good at it, and they know that it works. Yet there's still this inner resistance. There's this inner pull back to the addiction, particularly when there's a strong emotional event. So this is actually a stage that people go through in their recovery journey. It's very common, but it's not just people in a recovery journey from addiction. It's something that everybody experiences almost on a daily basis. It's where you know what you want to do, but for some reason you either make excuses or find yourself doing something else, everything to avoid what you know that you need to do, what you know that you could be doing. So what is this inner conflict? This is what I want to talk about today. This is central to everybody's life. It's not just for people who have what we call identifiable, stereotypical addiction. So today I want to break down what's going on in your brain. Why is this happening? Is it just part of the personality? Is it that some people have their wiring crossed over in the wrong way? Or is it something that's just a normal biological function? And if so, how do we understand that? And then what do we do about that? So what I really want to talk about today is helping to really overcome this inner conflict. If we can do that, we can actually be a lot freer. Look, there's a really good reason why this occurs. What's happening when we're getting this resistance is in a sense, our survival brain, the limbic system in our brain is kicking into gear. It's taking over. And this is a subconscious process. And this comes about because the subconscious is taken notice of events, strong emotional experiences in the past, particularly painful ones, but also highly pleasurable ones. And it's kind of taken a snapshot of that, of what that feeling is. It's not so much what the conceptual understanding of that is, it's what that feeling is. And so that then gets stored almost as a template. And then in our daily life, if there's something that similarly matches to that, then the subconscious then comes forward and starts to reactivate that state of being, not just in terms of the feeling, yes, feeling, emotion, but also chemically. It's been shown that the brain, the way it reacts is reminiscent of that original experience. So sometimes these original experiences come through as a conscious belief, an opinion that's more than just a conscious opinion. It's actually like a mini program that seems to also have, a belief that we can name conceptually. So there's a feeling relationship to it, and there's a belief, and sometimes what people might call them false beliefs. But these snapshots, let's call them, these snapshots of states are being used as a reference point by our survival brain, our reward system, our fight or flight system, to kind of look after us, prevent us from going back into situations that are either painful, have danger, or trying to push us towards situations that are highly pleasurable. And so this is all being orchestrated outside of our conscious understanding. I mean, we might have some kind of inkling of it if we have some self-awareness that I have this false belief that either I don't feel good enough, or sometimes I feel stupid, and these things are not actually correlating with the truth of the situation. So the point is there, we might have some conscious awareness of it, but that's just not enough, because the subconscious is really designed to take over from our analytical decision-making frontal cortex. So this is why it feels so confusing. This is why it feels like we're trapped in these automatic reactions, yet still, but having a conscious understanding that we don't want to be doing this. We want to be doing something else. We're very, very clear about that. So I guess what I'm saying is that these responses are part of our biological hardwiring, part of our safety mechanism. And so when this gets kicked off, and particularly this will get kicked off if there's been a lot of trauma in the past, or even if there's not a lot of trauma, we've just had, let's say, an accident or some really tough time in our life. Or it could be there's been a person in our life that's caused us real difficulty. So our subconscious has, in a sense, created let's call it a snapshot of what that state of being is. And if anything starts to resemble that, or if we remember that, we can then start to experience that same state of being and want to avoid that. Without our conscious mind really choosing to avoid it, our brain finds ways to avoid it, in a sense, trying to help us get away from that suffering. So this is what's happening to everybody, not just people with addiction. In so many ways. I mean, procrastination is a very common experience, and procrastination is really another label for this type of, let's call it like a trap, an inner conflict that's occurring. So what that means is that any labels that we might have applied to ourselves, saying that I am lazy, I don't have willpower, I'm, afraid of this or that, all of these labels that we've then taken on as and kind of believed it's part of our identity, these, in a sense, are just what we've started to recognize as a repeated reaction. And this repeated reaction is actually just a biological function. So that means that consciously, it's really not our fault. And I really, really want to say that again, like consciously, that means that these reactions, these ways of operating that are driven subconsciously, that are not what we really want, are happening outside of our conscious choice. So therefore, it's not really our fault. It's something that's kind of occurred like the weather. I mean, we didn't necessarily control the environment we grew up in. And there are a lot of experiences that we've had that have just occurred out of our control. And then our system has taken a snapshot and tried to prevent us from having that again. So the guilt and the shame that gets attached to this, and particularly with addiction, because the conventional view of addiction is that it's the person with addiction has made bad choices, is doing it to themselves consciously. But this isn't true. So this shame and this guilt is actually not valid. But even though we say it's not valid, the experience of shame and guilt is another one of those reactions, those states of being that we experience because we experience the suffering of negative judgment of others. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And we can really get trapped in that. Look, whether even without an addiction, this can occur, where you just lose confidence and you just start to doubt yourself. And then that causes further mistakes. And then you start to believe that this, in a sense, incomplete view of yourself. And this is real suffering occurs around this. So when you introduce strong substances, addictive substances, or strong behaviors, then we can get really trapped in this, because the addictive substance is in a sense, forms a temporary solution to this suffering, a relief, an escape. And it doesn't just occur with people with a stereotypical addiction. We find that this occurs in everybody, really, where we're doing the easy thing because we get a short-term payoff. We get some kind of pleasure, some kind of relief, some kind of avoiding the difficult, the challenging, the thing that we need to delay gratification for. So it's easy to fall into that. And in a sense, we're hardwired for it. So it's a real conundrum. And we can really go through this cycle many times, and even changing the escape mechanism, if you want to call it that, the behavior or the substance or the environment. This can just recycle in different ways. But it all comes back to this core programming and core functioning of our brain that's, in a sense, trying to help us. So I really, really would hope that you would hear this and then have a little understanding for yourself and for other people in this situation, really for everybody, actually. So we're all in this together. And give ourselves some compassion, some grace, some, patience, some consideration, and, in a sense, try to remember that there's more going on here than what the conscious mind is fully in control of or understands. So now that we've talked about how that situation occurs, let's talk about what we can do about it, because I think that's really, in a sense, the way out, the light at the end of the tunnel, the way out of this. And there is a way out. There's, and it really is available to everybody. This way is not just for some people. It's not just for being people who are lucky or people who have a certain special ability. And the reason why I say that is because the way out is something that we all have access to. And that is, number one, our conscious mind. We all have a conscious mind. We all walk around awake in our daily life as opposed to being asleep. So there's a level of awakeness, there's a level of consciousness that's available to us. And the other thing is, within that awakeness, that consciousness is awareness. And awareness, the meaning of that is the ability to be aware that we are conscious, that we are aware. So there's, let's say, awakeness without so much awareness. That's where we're just in autopilot. We're doing whatever we're doing, and then the day is gone. All the hours of the day are gone. We didn't notice the hours passing. We were awake, as in conscious, but we were not aware of that as it passed. And then there's this ability of us to be aware that we're conscious, aware that we're awake. And that ability of awareness is also able to be aware of itself. And that is key. This is a superpower, right? So we all have access to this. We all have access to this. You right now, listening to this, know that you're obviously awake listening to it, but you know that you're listening to it. You're aware that you are aware of this. So you have this superpower. So this is what we need to use in order to the situation from the automatic pilot reaction that the subconscious is using. Now, the subconscious is really doing that because it doesn't have another option. Our conscious mind might be awake, but not really aware enough to have any influence. So the subconscious is having to take over this protective mechanism, this survival mechanism with these snapshots of potential danger or pleasure are loading up. And when they load up, we then feel a state of being, and then that causes us to go into automatic reaction. So if we can instead use our conscious mind and our power of awareness to, let's say, increase or dial up or expand the scope of that, which is totally possible, then what ends up happening is we see more of what's happening. We see more of what is going on externally and internally. We see more. And we then have more free choice. Now, just on a brain level, when the subconscious, let's say this limbic survival system is operating, the frontal cortex, which is more the complex decision-making, in a sense, the conscious awareness part, that's often dialed down. So if we can learn a skill to actually turn that up, you see, that what that does is it means that the subconscious automatic reactions are not as strong, and there's more information within the conscious part of the mind that can be then used to choose a different approach, different actions, different options. So that's the first thing, connecting with our superpower that actually can give us more choice. And the next thing is that the subconscious is operating from the point of view of a state of being. A state of being, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, let's say fear is not just a thought, isn't it? You can have the thought fear, but that's very different in a sense to feeling fear, or gratitude. You can think, so happy to have this. You can think, I'm grateful to have this. It's very different to feeling deeply how fortunate, how grateful, how truly grateful I am. And there's a very different feeling about that state of being. So with our conscious awakeness and our awareness of that, we can then choose to activate different states of being. And when we activate a different state of being, our subconscious recognizes that. It's the language of the subconscious, a state of being. And if that state of being is one that's feeling safe, feeling okay, feeling content even, feeling out of danger, then the subconscious backs off. It stops running that program, these, like I said before, these kind of mini programs, these beliefs and these snapshots of potential danger from the past. It stops running those programs because they're not necessary, because we're feeling safe in our state of being. And this has been awakened or led by our conscious mind. So our conscious mind has to step up and be the leader here, rather than abdicating responsibility and the subconscious taking over. So we all have the ability to do this. And I see this in my clients often. There'll be often an initial enthusiasm and where, someone is really doing all the things that are going to produce a result. And then something can happen in their life, a challenge, and it could be something painful. But then these subconscious automatic reactions start to start to kick in, and because of these reactions produce a state of being, the person then believes that they start to believe things like, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do this, or this is maybe not working, or it's not, at least not working today. And this urge for immediate escape, this immediate gratification starts to take over, because that's what the subconscious really does. It wants to change your state of being now. But remembering the state of being is almost brought about by the subconscious snapshot from the past. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you know what I mean. So instead of that, if we have a skill where we can step back, connect with our conscious, awake mind and become more aware, we then get space, we then get more choice. And then if we can do things that can activate a more positive, safe state of being. So one very simple one is we can just go for a walk, take ourselves out of the situation, change the environment, just very quickly, right? Now, I'm not just saying we mindlessly do that. I'm saying we connect with our conscious, awake, and aware mind first, or during, and change the environment as well. Another thing that we can do is we can develop a practice that really engages the awake, aware aspect, facility, superpower that we all have. And that can immediately access a deeper state of being. And I mean, other things too, like we can just remember that if there's a reaction occurring, that this isn't going to last forever. And if we just delay taking action, it just takes a little bit of time for the frontal cortex, the conscious understanding, to come online, because these subconscious reactions are very quick. And then the state of being is very quick, and we can get sucked into that. But if we just delay action for, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes and work on just being, just really, in a sense, just being aware of what's happening now, inevitably, most likely, you will already be safe, and you'll start to feel that. And the subconscious settles down, and the conscious mind can connect with a deeper, more contented, more at peace state of being. Even if it's simply just becoming aware that you're in a room, or you're, let's say, outside walking, and you can see the sky, you can see the ground. It takes you out of this conflicting automatic mind that can really overtake our state of being. So ultimately, this skill that I'm talking about, and I've only talked about it very generally, this can ultimately become extremely powerful. So powerful that what can actually happen is this old programming can actually be transformed, completely transformed, so it doesn't kick in anymore. These old snapshots that were from situations in the past can actually be completely resolved. Your ability to be present and react or take action with what is occurring now becomes so much clearer, so much easier. Even further than that, this skill of connecting with the superpower of our conscious mind and our awareness can take us into deeper states of being that are one and the same as our deep nature, our inherent natural state, where we are fundamentally, completely at peace, and where we can realize consciously that this is what we are. and that this is actually beyond pleasure and pain. It's beyond being conditioned by the body or conditioned by events. And this is a much deeper level of freedom. So this skill can go a very, very long way. And this is where people can have these kind of life-altering, transcendent experiences, really. It's not necessarily saying it's out of this world. It can be just, it's really actually deeply within the nature of the world, of what we are, what our body-mind is, and in a sense, what everything is. And there's qualities about that, how that is not separate to anything that can be realized. There's qualities of that state where you realize it doesn't have a beginning or an end. So, of course, this that I'm describing now is not necessary to give up addiction or for you to experience change in this inner conflict within your life right now. This conflict starts to change and this freedom grows very quickly. Well, all I'm saying is that it can actually go much, much further than you could ever believe and be very, very profound, to the point where you end up having a different baseline experience where it takes a lot to fluster you. It takes a lot for the subconscious to take over, because you always get this reflex where the conscious mind opens up very quickly when anything happens, even at a more subtle level. So I just wanted to really address this inner conflict and this experience of knowing what you really, really want and being frustrated and bewildered as to why you might find yourself continually repeating what you don't want and feeling trapped and powerless in that, and then feeling ashamed and guilty and hopeless, as if there's something wrong with you. Well, there really isn't anything wrong with you. This is a normal human experience, and yet we do have the ability to experience a very different way of operating. Really, it's a more of an actualization of our human potential. So it's not even anything foreign. We're not making anything up. It's not even special. It's part of what we are. So I really encourage you with that, and to take hope and really see the potential and take heart. It's not hopeless. You have what you need available, and you are using that right now to listen to this video, and you're aware that you're listening to this video. So the awakeness and the awareness is there. It's a matter of cultivating and becoming more familiar with what that superpower really is and how it can manifest and how you can experience a different, deeper, clearer, open, safer, contented, peaceful state of being. So best wishes with that. And I'll leave it here, and maybe we can talk further in the future. Bye for now.